Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Malcolm the Machine Wellmaker. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC 316, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. You got the champ, Merab Dvalishvili, putting his belt on the line against the former champ, Sugar Sean O'Malley, in a rematch. And lots of stakes on the line. Malcolm Wellmaker, welcome back to Half the Battle. And most importantly, happy birthday.
Appreciate it, homie. Good to be here, man.
The pleasure's all mine. So without further ado, Malcolm, let's get right down to business, because in this main event, we got the champ, Merab Dvalishvili. He's 19-4, taking on Sugar Sean O'Malley, who's 18-2. Currently, they got it, Merab Dvalishvili minus 265. The comeback on Sugar Sean is plus 225. So Merab is 34 years old. Sugar Sean entering his prime at 30. Sean obviously has the height advantage. Slight 4-inch reach advantage, not as pronounced as the height difference, but definitely something he's going to be looking to use here and keep this fight at range. So, Malcolm, this is interesting because to me, this is one of those situations where you view the first fight. It seemed kind of one-sided, despite the fact that two of the judges had it 48-47, meaning it was 3-2. So that being said, you run a fight like this 10 different times, there will be different outcomes each time. There will be some occurrences where Sean O'Malley might land that finishing shot. But what kinds of adjustments do you see a guy like O'Malley making? Because he literally told the UFC, hey, I can beat this guy. Just give me a little bit of time, focus on a couple things. I'm going to come back and beat this guy. What do you think about this fight for the title in your division?
Man, so first of all, I love the fight. I mean, because everybody loves watching Merab. I mean, he's super entertaining. And Sugar Sean O'Malley just keeps the division interesting. Seeing him on the card is always fun, whether you want to see him win or lose. But I think you said a lot with, the fact that I know Sean O'Malley is still getting better. I mean, every time we see him, he's a better fighter. And I'm not saying, I don't think Merab can get better, but most likely Merab is going to be the same exact guy he was in the last fight. He was very successful. There's not a lot of adjustments he really has to make. So I see him probably having a very similar camp, very similar approach, very similar success rate. But Sean O'Malley has so much he can go back and draw on. There's so much that he can learn. He, like you said, Aaron, in his physical prime. And he said he was fighting with one hip. He had to go get the labrum repaired. So assuming that that's going to make a difference, assuming that he took his training serious, which it sounds like he did, I think he can come back and he can shake it up and change the fight the way it looks a whole lot, and maybe not even have to rely on just power, being able to beat him for 5 rounds. I'm not saying I'm picking Sean O'Malley to win, but I definitely can see him coming back and giving way more of a more even fight than it was the first time.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest takeaways, Malcolm, of the first fight was just the threat of the takedown. That level change just had O'Malley gun shy. He wasn't willing to let his hands go like he usually does. And not only that, he didn't seem as fast and as athletic as he normally is. Now, do you think that was more so due to the anxiety of what's coming back at him? Because with a guy like Merab, he's so mentally strong that you stuff the first 5 to 10 takedowns. Guess what? There's 20 to 30 more attempts coming right after that,
Right. Yeah, I don't know, man, because, I feel like he faced that same threat with Aljo, but it just didn't look the same. I think he fears Merab in a way that he didn't fear Aljo. It's not just the takedown, but the machine of the takedown, the constant, pace, the nonstop. I felt like he might have felt like he could have discouraged Aljo with the power, but he doesn't think he can discourage Merab with the power, and that's why we see him so gun-shy. And I mean, in the end, he did start looking a little better, and I think it's because you threw caution to the wind. So hopefully he comes out and is gunning from the jump,
Yeah, let me say something regarding the end of that fight, because you're referring to when he hurt him to the body in
Yes.
the 5th round. Now, I want your opinion on this. Was that simply, hey, credit to O'Malley, perfect shot, perfect timing, and maybe now you can start to do things like that earlier in the fight? Or was it simply Merab was so far ahead on the cards, now he's coasting a bit? This is the last round. All you got to do is survive, and you accomplish your dream of being the champ. Do you think he let his foot off the gas knowing he was ahead on the cards, or is that all credit to O'Malley finding a nice opening despite being that late in the fight?
I think a little bit of both. Because I think that, with it being that late in the fight and Merab being so up, no matter who you are, just your natural human reaction is gonna be to let your foot off the gas a little bit. So I think that was a little bit of it. But it was on Sean O'Malley to recognize it, to still tap into those skills that he had, that late in the fight. I mean, how exhausted could he have been, to still be able to find that shot? So I think both of those elements equally exist in that situation. So credit to Sean O'Malley for sure, not taking anything away from him. And if Merab did let off the gas, that was a mistake that he made and Sean O'Malley capitalized on.
Well, now it's time to give a pick. So for me, as a pure pick, it's interesting because historically speaking, there are exceptions, but usually the champ that won the first fight, he usually wins the rematch. It's a rare occurrence for when someone lost their belt for them to come back and win it again. Now, don't get me wrong, Malcolm. We've seen a few exceptions, Volkanovski, Shevchenko, Israel Adesanya back in the day, but like it rarely happens. Once they lose that belt, they tend not to get it back. But I mean, we're still tuning in for a reason because there still might be a chance, right? So what's the official pick here?
Like I said, I really, really do think Sean O'Malley's going to come back and put up a better fight. But my official pick, if I have to go with one, I'm going with Merab, man. It's like you said, I see him coming back, being successful again. It's such an uphill battle for O'Malley to try to overcome, and come back and make it look that much different than the first one. And I just see it happening very similar to the first fight.
Yeah, and I just want to say one thing because the odds are completely different than the first fight, and that's what we call a market overcorrection. The first time Merab was the underdog. Now he's not just a favorite, Malcolm. He's a big favorite. And in situations like this, we got to bring up, we got to nitpick a little bit. Reason being is they're asking you to pay a premium price on Merab. So now we have to bring up that Marlon Moraes rocked him in that first round. Yeah. Now we have to bring up that Henry Cejudo rocked him in that first round.
That's right.
Now we have to bring up that Sean O'Malley had him badly hurt at the end of the fifth. That's and right. Even in the Umar fight, he lost the first two rounds. And that's not at all to diminish Merab or take anything away from him. It's just to say that these odds are implying that, Merab wins this over 70% of the time. That's why I'm talking in those terms. He's not invincible. Now he's got the heart of a lion, relentless, the machine, but he's not invincible. And with the odds, it might be a dog or pass situation from a betting perspective. And I know you want to see some big adjustments from O'Malley. I do too. Let's just see if he makes them or not. So again, pure pick for me. I'm gonna go Merab, but I think from a betting perspective, it's a dog or pass situation. Now, next up for the bantamweight belt for the women, we got the champ Julianna Pena. She's 11-5, taking on the challenger Kayla Harrison, who's 18-1. Currently, they got it. Kayla Harrison minus 800. The comeback on Julianna Pena is plus 550. So they're around the same age, and I gotta keep it a buck with you as always, Malcolm. Listen, all respect to Julianna Pena because she's incredibly gritty, right? Like the way she wins fights, it's like comebacks and like you got to have respect for like a serious comeback fighter that will take everything you give them. It will take everything up front and then will still be there, not discouraged, pushing forward. And the fact that Julianna Pena won the belt twice speaks volumes to her mentality and her heart, because I'm, again, like I said, I was going to keep it a buck, and this is not disrespect. This is just my honest opinion. I don't think Julianna Pena is the best fighter in that division, like skill for skill. I simply don't think so, man. And honestly, Malcolm, I'm not even convinced she beat Raquel that last fight. I felt like Raquel landed the damage, had the knockdown, and like you watch, dude, you watch that first Amanda fight, and I'm not going to downplay choking out the women's GOAT. Of course not. But you watch the rematch, and it proved that the first fight was a bit of a fluke. But here's my issue with Kayla. Not necessarily an issue, but something to note. Dude, did you by chance attend any of the PFL events in Atlanta like a year or two ago?
No, never.
So they came to like a youth basketball gymnasium, right? And I saw Kayla Harrison fight at 155 pounds, right? And she was running through these girls, you know what I'm saying? But now she's at 35s, and she's made the weight twice, but this ain't no 36, Malcolm. This is 35. This is championship weight. No 1 pound allowance. My girl's 34, 35 at some point. You know, because when we talk about Julianna being a comeback fighter, what does that mean? Well, maybe this weight cut, you know, you can see Kayla Harrison having some early dominance. And if Julianna is still there in those championship rounds, that's where things could get kind of interesting, especially when you're looking at a price like this, Malcolm.
That's right. You know, speaking on Kayla Harrison, man, I think when we all saw what she did to Holly Holm, we was very excited about, you know, what her run was going to look like. But when I tuned into her following fight, I think a lot of us was disappointed because we wanted to see another, you know, smash like we saw in the first one. And she really, really did struggle with a much smaller name than Holly Holm. Now, I'm not taking away the credit from her opponent because obviously she was very good. But I think it really showed that, you know, Kayla Harrison is not the Terminator. And with that being said, you know, Julianna Pena, like you said, you know, she did get the rematch. She did get beat up pretty good. And even her second, you know, title win was debatable. But I don't think you slip up and win a belt twice on accident. Like, you know, she's fought the best in the world. She beat the GOAT. I mean, imagine what that's done for her confidence. Imagine how much she's willing to take from Kayla Harrison before she starts having her way. And, you know, it's a championship fight. We're talking 5 rounds. Like you said, it could be a big cut. She could be getting, you know, fighters get old overnight. I mean, there's just so many X factors. And Julianna Pena is the one that when those little banana peels get in the way, she'll find a way to make the opponent slip on those things. So those odds are crazy, man. Jesus, those are absolutely absurd odds. But I like Julianna Pena in this fight, man.
I love it. Very bold pick by Malcolm the Machine Wellmaker, taking the plus 550 dog as a pure pick. I love it. Listen, I'd love to see the upset. I'm going to lean with Kayla. I think the physicality is going to be too much. I feel like if she can just get off to that big lead and not necessarily coast, but like just mind your P's and Q's in these championship rounds should the fight get there. I mean, assuming that she hasn't gotten a judo throw to an arm bar or whatever the case may be, because like we are talking about an Olympian, Malcolm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just dropping not to 45s, but to 35s from 55s. Like, man, that's
big, man. That's big, man. Those weight cuts make a difference. They make a difference in how hard a shot you can take. Obviously, in the cardio, I mean, the brain fog with making decisions in those split seconds. I mean, it could be a big impact. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, I know the fans are super pumped that you picked the big upset here, and my boring ass took Harrison. But listen, guys, I know y'all love a little disagreement, so let's get to the next one. So, featured bout in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Kelvin Gastelum. He's 19-9, taking on Joe Pyfer, who's 13-3. Currently, they got it. Joe Pyfer minus 410. The comeback on Kelvin Gastelum is plus 310. So you got the 6'2" Joe Pyfer taking on the 5'9" Kelvin. Everyone knows that Kelvin's a former welterweight, but man, he loves his tacos. Listen, I don't blame him. I love my tacos too. And like at one point when Kelvin was at middleweight, or when he first started his run at middleweight, he was dropping like every single person he fought. I'm saying win, lose, or draw, bro. Like even that fight he lost against Weidman, he still floored Weidman. So like Kelvin's dangerous, man. And like when he fought Izzy in Atlanta, dude, that was one of the best fights.
One of the greatest fights of all time.
Oh man. And you know, we got to see Dustin and Max right after that. Like they spoiled the hell out of us there, man. But what do you think? Because they were supposed to fight in Mexico. Joe Pyfer got sick. I think he drank the tap water, which is like, are you crazy? You're supposed to boil that shit. You know what I'm saying? Insane. Yeah, man. But now they're actually in Pyfer's hometown, which is kind of like, in a sense, not fair to Gastelum. But hey, life's not fair. The fight game's not fair. What do you think is going to happen in this fight?
So to be honest with you, man, I am a pretty big Kelvin Gastelum fan. A lot of it obviously had to do with that fight between him and Izzy. And I know he struggled with the weight cuts for a while, but like you said, when he moved up, he was still putting power on guys. So to be honest about Joe Pyfer, I don't know a ton about this guy. Like I've seen clips from his fights. I've never really tuned in and watched his style close enough to imagine what his breakdown with Gastelum would look like. So my uneducated pick, just off my favorite and what I like, I'm gonna go with Kelvin Gastelum, man.
Okay, my boy Malcolm with 2 back-to-back big upsets. That's
uneducated on this one for sure, but I like Kelvin Gastelum, man.
No, that's ballsy. Listen, man, Kelvin Gastelum, when he first came into the UFC, it was great because like the guy's like so assuming and unsuspecting, like is a short fat dude that likes tacos, but he's out here like dropping everyone, you know? And like when he came into the UFC at first, he was dropping legends, Vitor Belfort. Man, you know, he got scheduled to fight Anderson, and Anderson had to pull out. So then they did the Kelvin versus Bisping fight. And, you know, Bisping 2 weeks prior had fought GSP, and Bisping, being the tough, you know, Hall of Famer he is, was like, screw it. I don't care if I just, you know, if I'm still recovering, I'm gonna go fight this guy in China. And like, yeah, he got knocked out by Kelvin, but like, all respect to Bisping, you know, that's what you call brass balls, and which he is known for. I mean, you remember the Luke Rockhold fight. We remember the knockout, but a lot of people failed to remember that he took that on like a week or two short notice. So
crazy, bro.
Bisping's a legend, man. But like, here's my thing, guys. So I love Kelvin. I'm a fan of Kelvin, but like, man, I feel like in 2025, being a 5'9" middleweight, I feel like those days might be kind of behind us. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you still have to be on a certain level to be Kelvin, no matter what. But I'm saying, as guys approaching the top 15, this new generation of middleweights where like this dude Pyfer, like you'd have to cut off a leg for him to make 170, whereas you could see him ending his career at 205. Whereas like a guy like Kelvin, he goes to 205, dudes are going to be soccer kicking him out the octagon. You understand me? So I think that the size and physicality of Pyfer is actually going to be the difference here. Like, I do think that Kelvin can bang in the pocket with him, but man, I think he's playing with fire in those instances. And even like that one loss that Pyfer had against Jack Hermanson, which was a massive step up in competition, that was a 5-round fight. Joe Pyfer won the first 2 rounds. This is a 3-round fight. Like, I think he's had enough time since then to mature, to learn, to make the proper adjustments. And I think he comes out here, keeps it long, and shows that there's weight classes for a reason. And it breaks my heart to say that about a guy who was 1 round away from being the champ at this weight class, Malcolm. You understand me? But I just think, that was 2019, bro. This is 2025. Times have changed. Give me a Pyfer here via, physicality and brute strength. Now, this one I'm very excited about your opinion on, because next up in the bantamweight division, we got the UFC debut of Patchy Mix. He's coming into the UFC with a 20-1 record. He's taken on Mario Bautista, who's 15-2. Currently, they got it Patchy Mix -185. The comeback on Mario Bautista is +160. Both men are 31 years old, flat out in their primes. I mean, if someone's going to make a title run, it has to be. Well, it doesn't have to be right now, but I would assume that both these guys are feeling like, hey, now is my time. And Patchy Mix, he's a specialist, right? Like those guillotine chokes, man. And coming from me, I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but I'm a guillotine guy. Yeah. And like with guillotines, it's like, if you're not a guillotine guy and you sell out for guillotines, that's when we cringe, and then they end up on their back the rest of the round, can't get up. It's like life alert. But like a real guillotine guy, oh man, that's like music to my ears. And Patchy is a real guillotine guy. But on the other side, you got a very well-rounded, tough guy in Mario Bautista, who's kind of flying under the radar. And Malcolm, before you go, I want to say this. People calling Mario Bautista a boring fighter are casuals. Did he have a boring fight with Jose Aldo? Yes. That fight sucked. But you can't categorize a guy based off one fight. And not to mention based off one fight against a legend who he probably had a poster of on his wall growing up.
For sure.
So like when you play it safe against a legend and still get the dub, that's not the kind of stuff that I hold against you. And plus you look at his past performances. I mean, there's nothing boring about the way he's been going out here and finishing these lower tier guys. There was nothing. I mean, was there anything boring about the way he went out there and flying knee KO'd Miles Johns? I don't think so. So I think this guy is a tough out, and he's really going to test Patchy Mix. So what do you think, man? Your division, 2 future opponents, how you see this going?
Yeah. So, and like you said, I think that's the big thing. He's really going to test Patchy Mix. So, first off, let me start this by saying I have limited knowledge on most guys outside the UFC. I'm almost a casual because all I watch is the UFC. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I know very well of Patchy Mix. I actually have teammates who know him personally. I've seen a lot of what he does. Dude is legit. But I mean, how many times have we seen guys come over to the UFC and struggle? I mean, we just saw, Yair Rodriguez and Pitbull, and it really wasn't close.
Let me say this. I apologize to cut you off. One slight difference, Pitbull being 38, Patchy being 31. Just want to say that.
Okay, I give it to you. But, the narrative at least is not the age gap. The narrative is, other promotions versus UFC.
For sure.
So thinking of that narrative, it's hard for some of these guys to come over and do what they did in other promotions against UFC fighters. And like you said, Mario Bautista has given us some really good performances. He's been exciting. And up until the Jose Aldo fight, nobody hated him. You know what I mean? And so people hate him now because of the last fight. But I mean, depending on how you look at it, man, that's a fight IQ approach. He won the fight against one of the biggest names on his resume now. So with that being said, I would expect him to, like you said, test Patchy Mix and bring a level of fight IQ to it. And not to say that I don't think Patchy Mix could adjust, but with my limited knowledge, My pick is going to be Bautista, man. I'm going with the UFC versus other organizations on this one, man.
Okay, my boy Malcolm with a third straight underdog pick. Hey, you love to see it, man. You love to see it. And you know what? The other two underdog picks, I was on the opposite side of you, but this one, I'm on the same side.
Okay, all right.
But let me say this, man. I got a lot of respect for Patchy, you know, to develop a 20-1 record outside the UFC. And like, I mean, he's fought legit guys. I mean, Sergio Pettis, Rafion Stotts, the Magomedov guy. But like, speaking of the Magomedov guy, bro, I low-key thought Patchy lost that fight against him. Not the first one where he choked him out, but the rematch that went 5 rounds, like his most recent fight. I felt like he was getting wobbled all over the place. I felt like there was an argument for a 4-1, even a 5-0 for Magomedov, as crazy as that sounds, man. And of course, look, this guy gets on your neck, you know, even someone as talented as Bautista, because I think Bautista is probably a black belt too, but obviously there's black belts and then there's black belts. It's just that if you're a specialist, especially at the high end of a division, man, like we think of Merab as like a takedown specialist, but like Merab, I know it doesn't look the prettiest, but he's still in there throwing hands with real guys, with Peter Yan, with Umar, with Henry, with he's in there throwing hands with these guys. We're like, if Patchy tries to throw hands with some of these guys, I think it's going to look kind of sketchy. I think, you feel me? Like, I feel like he's going to start diving from a mile out for, you know the deal. So yeah, maybe look, he is that good where he can maybe dangle off his neck, but I feel like that's his only path to victory. So here's how I see it playing out. Kind of like the Damon Blackshear fight. I think maybe the first round, Patchy Mix gets a back take, but doesn't get a finish. And then from there, in the second and third round, I feel like he's not going to get the takedowns. He's going to start being a little bit more fatigued, shoot from a mile out, sprawl and brawl from Bautista, a little bit more volume, 29-28, unanimous decision. Bautista for the upset.
That sounds right on. That's kind of what I expect as well.
Now, kicking off the main card in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Vicente Luque. He's 23-10, taking on Kevin Holland, who's 27-13. Currently, they got it. Kevin Holland minus 280. The comeback on Vicente Luque is plus 240. So we're looking at a 5-inch reach advantage for Kevin Holland here, a 4-inch height advantage. Now, you know, the 5-inch reach advantage is significant in most cases, but dude, we're actually used to Kevin Holland coming out here with like 7 to 10-inch reach advantage in a lot of fights. This is actually a little bit less pronounced, but man, here's my thing with this fight, right? So I was on a fade Kevin Holland world tour, meaning I was betting against Kevin Holland every fight, but Malcolm, that was at 85s, right? And like you see the size of the guys he was fighting at 85s, Rainer de Ridder, like Roman Dolidze, like these are mammoths of men. Like Rainer de Ridder is fought at heavyweight. Dolidze is fought at 205 in the UFC. So I'm like, dude, like that's not even fair, man. But it seemed like Kevin was like, okay. He went on that 1-4 run at middleweight, and it was like, okay, that was a wake-up call. Let's go back to 170, where it's my real weight class. And you saw that last fight against Gunnar Nelson. I understand Gunnar's a bit on the older side, but that was still against a welterweight, a real welterweight. You're not fighting these 6'4" brutes that, you know, you have no business in there with. So I'm happy about that from Kevin Holland's perspective. From Luque, I'm still on the fence. Let me explain why, Malcolm, because Luque, you know, he obviously had his big win streak. He had that point where he was like the backup fighter for the title. But in his fight against Jeff Neal, he suffered a brain bleed.
Oh, wow.
Where, like, you know, those are the kind of things where not only physically you might not come back the same, but mentally, especially when you're a guy like Luque who gets in the pocket, who's kill or be killed, who, I mean, that left hook has not just knocked out many welterweights. You remember Thiago Santos, who fought John Jones at 205? Let me tell you a little MMA trivia. Vicente Luque fought Thiago Santos. How do you think that fight ended?
Thiago Santos knocked him out?
Vicente Luque knocked Thiago out with a left hook.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're talking about a welterweight versus a 205er. I'm sure they met at a different weight class, but I'm just trying to, my point here is this man's left hook is nasty. His calf kicks are disgusting. And my favorite part about his game is his front choke series. You know, you start to get lit up, you know, a little bit with the calf kicks. You feel like, all right, I'm going to take this guy down. You shoot a sloppy shot on Vicente Luque, you might not even have time to tap. You might be going to sleep right then and there. Right. So but I feel like Kevin can keep this long, and that's where the brain bleed kind of questions come in. Has Vicente truly recovered? Because that last fight against Temba, he got the finish in under a minute. Great
Right.
job. Beautiful. That's how you get your confidence back. I love it. But here's my thing, Malcolm. He didn't have to take any punches. He didn't have to go through an actual fight. It was a less than a minute finish. He's going to have to go through a fight here. So we're going to find out where Vicente is really at. What's your opinion on this matchup?
Yeah, man. So you kind of called it when you said, you know, Kevin Holland being rangy. That's really what I expect. I expect Kevin Holland to utilize his range, stay on the outside and hit him with shots. You know, I feel like for him to be more successful, Luque to be more successful, he has to get in. And Kevin Holland's really good at being paced, taking his time, and hitting guys with hard shots. And taking into account that kind of damage in his previous fights, that stuff matters, not just mentally, but obviously with your ability to currently take that kind of damage. So as long as Kevin Holland can do what he's supposed to do, which he always does for the most part, which is stay on the feet and throw those long shots from the outside, I see him being successful. And that's going to be my pick, man. I'm going big mouth.
Yeah, listen, I'm really happy that he made that drop back to 70 because that shows me, like, even if he's not talking about winning a belt, at least he's taking things seriously. Like, no matter what this guy says, the fact that he's willing to put in the work to make 70s, that's all I had to hear. And Vicente, it's about, from his perspective, he's got to close distance here, right? Because Holland's not just a longer guy, but Holland's going to be on his bike too, throwing those side kicks, keeping it long. And like you said, when he finds that home for that straight right, I mean, bodies do tend to hit the floor, even at middleweight, but especially at welterweight. So we're going to find out where Luque is really at, durability-wise and mentality-wise. I get someone taking the shot on Luque at these odds because the odds truly are wide, but as a pure pick, I got to go Holland here, man. Like I said, if he was still up at 85s, we'd still be on the Fade Kevin Holland World Tour. But, you know, he made an adjustment, and so am I. So I'm picking Kevin Holland to win this fight.
Hey.
Now, we got one more fight to talk about, and then we're going to do a little brief Q&A before I let you go to practice. So next up in the flyweight division, I'm so excited about this, Malcolm. We got a matchup.
Banger, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Very fun fight. You say, who do I got?
Oh, wait, hold on. We got Joshua Van.
Look at those odds.
I know. He's 13-2, taking out Bruno Bulldog, who's 14-6. Currently, they got it. Josh Van minus 700. You got to lay 1,400 to profit 200, Malcolm. The comeback on Bruno Bulldog's plus 450. I love this fight. Oh man, look at the age gap, 12 years.
Goodness.
Hey man, I love this kid, Josh Van. He, to me, has all the makings of a future top 5 guy. Like, I love everything I see about him. And my criticism when he came into the UFC early is, look, man, when you're like a 22-year-old kid coming to the UFC, like Malcolm, when you were 22 years old, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I was watching him fight like Walter McCoy, which, by the way, let me say this. We were going to get into it later, but since I brought it up, you know, before you fought Cameron Simon, I went back and watched your amateur fights just to see like your progression.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, when's the last time you watched your fight with Walter McCord?
I probably watched that within the last, I know I've watched it within the last year for sure. I actually revisit that fight pretty often just because like that moment was pivotal in my career.
Dude. Well, firstly, it was an honor to do commentary for that fight. You know, I love both you and Walter. Y'all are my homies, but for you guys, you being 22, him being like 18 or something,
bro,
that was one of the highest level 5-round kickboxing amateur fights I've ever seen. And going back and watching it, like, even though, yeah, there's certain things, you're green, this and that, you're a literal kid. You look like a kid in that fight. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize this much time has flown by, but like, you see the little glimpses though of like what you could eventually become one day. Right. And it's a beautiful thing. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Van, when he's 22, he's already in the UFC. So, so what's going to happen there is that, unfortunately for him, when he's your age, that's when he's going to kind of be on his way out. Whereas at your age, you're in your prime. Josh Van, I feel like he's 23 now or so. Like when he's 25, 26, that's when I feel like he's going to be making his championship run. But here's the thing about this matchup. This guy, Bruno Bulldog, one thing about him, man, he cracks. Like he might not have the highest output, might not have the best takedowns, but when he lands hard and he lands with impact. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because what was the criticism we had of Josh Van when he first came into the UFC was he's a bit too hittable. You know, 22 years old. so much confidence, thinks he's God's gift to fighting. Like, yeah, my chin, he's not even worried about his chin meter. He's not worried about taking damage, right? He's a kid. But I felt like after that fight he had against Charles Johnson, really specifically the fight against our boy Cody Durden, and then most recently the Saruya fight, I saw a big leap in maturity from Josh Van. He's a lot more defensively responsible. His takedown defense has gotten ridiculously good. And obviously the volume's always been there, but now there's just a certain assertiveness about him, a certain presence. And I like everything about Josh Van. I think Bruno Bulldog is KO or bust in this spot. I don't see him winning any other way. Whereas I can see Josh Van winning a decision, kind of cooking Bruno, getting a late TKO, Peter Yan style, maybe kind of start it slow that first round, make your reads. But by the time late second, third round comes through, I'm seeing punches and bunches. I'm seeing body shots. I'm seeing a third round TKO. Give me Josh Van here.
Yeah, this fight is incredible. Like, this is like one of my favorite fights on the card. Obviously, because they're a closer weight class to me, but also I watched Cody Durden fight both of these guys, and that's kind of one of the tools that I'm using to gauge my pick, aside from the obvious factors. Joshua Van has, like you said, been looking better and better every single fight, and I'm a fan of the kid. I want to see him do great things. And then you saw what he did to Cody Durden. He looked really, really good against Cody Durden, but Cody Durden was putting it on Bruno before he got caught. And so with that being said, man, I really can't see Bruno beating Joshua Van for longer than enough time for Joshua Van to get settled and really start finding those shots. I think he's going to put some heavy damage on him, like you said, some punches and bunches. He marches forward. He puts that volume on guys. And I think he's going to wear him down and have his way.
So we both got Josh Van here. Now, Malcolm, I know I got to let you go to practice. Before we do that, I got a couple questions for you, and then we'll have a couple fan questions, and I'm going to let you go. So a couple things I've been wondering.
Wait, who's your pick? You got Joshua Van too, right?
Oh, yeah, I got Josh Van.
Okay, all right, cool. All right.
Yeah. So, Malcolm, you're one of the few that gets to live their dream. What's the reality of that like in comparison to your expectations of what it would be like?
So the reality is sweet. Don't get me wrong. But I guess I just never actually thought through the logistics of it. You know what I mean? And I thought as soon as the full-time athlete, life kicked in, cars was going to change, clothes was going to change, and lifestyle was going to be different. And it's not, obviously, you know what I mean? I'm still living within the same means I was before I got here, obviously, because one, it's the smartest thing to do, but two, because that's the way my bills are worked out right now. So it's not as dramatic of a difference in lifestyle as I kind of imagined it to be, because it was a actual dream. You know what I mean? And a dream is a dream. A dream is everything is lavish, and a dream is, me walking around with these Johnny Cage shades. But, it still is incredibly sweet, man. Like I wake up, I go train, and then I have actual downtime in the comfort of my home, not in work boots. I'm wearing slides, you know what I mean, and waiting for my next session to kick in. So it's really, really sweet, but it's not the movie cinema yet. It's not there yet.
Well, I think one of the reasons you say that is because of your maturity and your past experience, working the kind of job you worked, right? Like, this is not your first time seeing money. So A lot of guys, they get that first 50K bonus, and, a week later, they don't have that 50K bonus anymore, right?
That's right.
One thing my dad always told me growing up is you're only a millionaire if you have $1 million. What does that mean? You might earn $1 million.
That's
you
right.
go spend it all. You ain't no millionaire. So,
no more.
So the fact that, you already learned what the value of money.
Oh, yeah.
The money, like with
I done went broke a few times, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so that's good that you came into the UFC so mature. Because like I said, you came into the UFC at 22.
Oh man, I'd be cutting up right now, bro. I would not be in the gym.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned was, hey, now I'm a full-time fighter. Now I'm up in that strength and conditioning. So I got to know, man, what's this new Malcolm Wellmaker strength and conditioning program I keep on hearing about? Like,
yeah, so it's crazy because, I tell people before I was working, obviously, a full-time job and training. Majority of my training time was mat time. So I could only block off one lifting session realistically in my schedule without sacrificing mat time, without sacrificing conditioning, without sacrificing, my grappling and all that other stuff. So I got one lift and strength and conditioning session before I went full time. And most of it was rehabbing injuries. So it wasn't even a full body program for, geared towards my MMA performance. It was really my health. Now, obviously, bro, I'm doing all type of stuff with, resistance bands, these fast switch things, throwing medicine balls, bro. And I have this obvious, 7-day-a-week support from the guys at the Performance Institute. So I'm literally in contact with these guys before my lift, during my lift, after my lift. I'm talking to them about my nutrition, my weight, how my body's feeling. And it's not even only my strength and conditioning in the lifting aspect, but I'm telling these guys, what have I been doing to get my fight cardio to this point? And we're even like changing some of the gears on that. So everything about me physically is going to be different, man. I'm going to be much stronger in my clinch situations. And God forbid I got more knockout power, man. They might put me in prison. I mean, I'm telling you, bro. It's good. It's good.
Hey, so did getting a KO on the biggest stage, let alone a KO like that, reaffirm your confidence and belief that, hey, your power does translate at the UFC level?
Yeah, the question for me wasn't if my power translated, because I knew it did. But what about my timing and placement of these shots? Can I hit them on the highest level strikers? And I think that question is answered. I mean, Adam Bramhall and Cameron both have an identity as strikers, winning their fights as strikers. And I put that shot on those guys within the first few minutes of the fight. So I believe it does.
I know it does. Now, when you and I did our last interview, which was only a few months ago, I had a bigger following than you. Now you have almost 100K followers. I'm super happy for you. And is it overwhelming for you, or does it feel just right in the sense that you're exactly where you should be?
It's a little bit of both. With that amount of growth so fast, man, it puts more pressure on me. You know what I mean? It makes me a little bit more self-conscious about everything I do. How many eyes are on me, how many people are, not just looking up to me, but also dissecting the small things that are not perfect about me. So it is a little bit more pressure, just not in my training, but who I am and the person that I'm putting myself out there as an athlete and as a role model. But also it's a blessing, man. It's a privilege. And it motivates me to see how many people draw inspiration from my story, because I think that's the reason I have such a following. A lot of guys go in there and get, devastating knockouts and even get multiple knockouts and don't reach that amount of following that I already have in one fight. So it gives me confidence that people are getting more from me than just an exciting night watching a fight. They're seeing my story, they're getting motivation, inspiration, and it's keeping them pushing throughout the week. So,
yeah, I mean, there was a guy that they were hyping named Adrian Yanez in your weight class. I hope that you get to fight him one day. After one fight, you got more followers than him, right?
I know, man. It's a couple guys I went and looked, and I was like, bro, this is insane, man. Because I was a fan of Adrian Yanez and a bunch of these other guys. Yeah, for sure, man. So it's incredible to see, like I said, that amount of growth in one fight is almost unprecedented, man.
I love it. I love it. And so, something I noticed. Malcolm Wellmaker, the guy that's always smiling, the guy that treats everyone with respect, the guy that consistently puts on the kinds of fights that the fans want to see. And I noticed even you have haters now. Now, here's what they're saying. They're saying he's a KO or bust guy. And this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. He shouldn't have quit his job. Malcolm, people hating you for no reason is a clear sign of your success. What's your reaction?
Yeah, man. Like you said, thank God I matured before I got here, bro, because it's some outrageous stuff that people get on the internet and say. Obviously, one of the biggest critiques I have from people that clearly don't understand the trade-off of my career decision is that 50K isn't enough to quit your job, blah, 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 But, I don't think I really have to go too in-depth to explain the trade-off here to people that know what's going on.
You can come back to the job anytime, first of all.
Any day. I literally have the ability to call the hall today, say, where's the work at? And I could be back at work tomorrow, making the same exact money I was making before I drug up. So that's just like those guys know literally nothing. First of all, a lot of those guys say he was definitely making $250,000 a year before he went to the UFC, and I'm like, as if, bro, I wish, you know what I mean? But that's one of the big ones. And then obviously I see guys all the time say he showed us nothing but a right hand, and that's cool. I hope that's the general consensus so that people will take me lightly and the rest of my skills will come as a surprise. So the haters are motivation and actually a source of entertainment, man.
Yeah, I mean, just a right hand, no kicks, no takedown defense, no nothing, like just a right hand, guys. Just the right hand.
It's gonna make easy money for us. Don't worry about it, bro. That's all.
So during your face-off with Cameron Simon, you shook Cameron's hand and Dana's hand super hard. Now, Cameron, I understand, but did you notice how hard you shook Dana's hand after the fact?
Bro, I was kind of embarrassed, bro, because I didn't realize until afterwards when I went back and watched it, and like just the force behind the handshake. Like listen, man, in the back, they line us up before we walk out front, in order that the fights are getting called. From the moment I got up out my chair to walk, and I waited in that spot for at least 5 minutes, bro. I was bouncing up and down the whole time. People were looking at me like I was crazy. But this shit was insane to me. Like, I'm about to go out and do a live face-off. I can hear the fans screaming. I see Dana White's out there. They got this huge backdrop with the ring girls. Like, bro, this is everything I ever dreamed of. I'm so excited. I'm so tired. I can't wait to go out there. I want to fight right now. So when I saw Dana, he put his hands out, and I just, man, I sent it. And it was all sincere. It was all real. And I didn't even realize it was that big of a impact on the handshake until I went back and looked at it. And it's funny looking back at it now, man. I was just, living the moment, man.
Oh, yeah. Y'all got to go back and watch it. No, but I think it speaks to your character too. And also, so recently, like maybe like a week or two ago, I had like a guest back out on me who was not even anywhere near, your level of popularity. And I was telling my producer, Meticulous, like, obviously I know Malcolm a long time, but like since we recently had like a guest or two back out, I was like, bro, one thing I can tell you, watch how he shook Dana and Cameron Simon's hand. This guy ain't gonna back out. This guy's a man of his word. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right. Damn right.
So obviously, look, the finish itself was incredible, but I know that you're a perfectionist and you're your own harshest critic. So did you still take away a few things to work on from a bird's eye view in those less than 2 minutes, even though from the outside it seemed like a perfect performance?
Yeah, for sure, man. There's a lot, and believe it or not, I mean, maybe it's not hard to believe, but I was a little bit excited, when I went out there.
Really, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I didn't throw many shots, but most of them that I threw had some heat on them. I think, I could have dialed it back a little bit. And even with that being said, that was probably the most excited I went out and fought in a long time. And I still was at a reasonable pace. So I think I did good, but I got some more control I can work on with the excitement of being at that stage, which I think naturally will take care of itself in my next fight because I've got those first, jitters out the way. Just a little bit more setups on it. But nothing too crazy, just small stuff and a lot of stuff that more so I think applies to my real-time performance when I go out and compete more so than showing the background technical things I have to work on the mats, which those are always evolving and one day gonna show themselves.
For sure. So the big question the fans want to know before we move on to the fan Q&A, listen, it's not just that people want to see you fight. It's that people want to specifically see you fight in Atlanta. Now, let me preface that by saying this. So I've been so happy to see you doing all these interviews. Karen Bryan, I love Karen.
Oh
Bryan.
yeah, she's awesome.
With Matt, Sarah, and Norton, all those guys. But like, what I loved about it was, being that I followed them for so long, just like I followed you for so long, but that was the first time they'd ever heard of you. So they're like asking, oh, you're from Atlanta and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness, I hated having to correct that.
So for the fans, Malcolm is from Augusta, which is 2 hours from Atlanta, and I'm from Atlanta. So the way Malcolm and I met, you already heard the story before. I called his amateur fight against Romano Scott where he knocked him out. I was told to only interview, the main and co-main event, but I was like, fuck that. I'm interviewing this kid right here, right now. So you already stood out to me back then, but like the reason I'm bringing that up is because you're from Augusta. I'm from Atlanta. So I was never seeing your talent in the training room, like all your training partners and your coaches were. So they knew what they had from the jump. Whereas I go into this fight thinking Ramondo Scott's going to kill this random kid. I see you, I'm blown away. Then I'm like, oh, wow, this is the guy. And that's why I'm bringing up the Atlanta Augusta thing, because we weren't in the same city. So I'd always be going around the local fights. Hey, when's Malcolm fighting? Hey, when's that kid Malcolm Wellmaker fighting? Like, I can't wait to see him fight again. So that being said, with the UFC coming back to Atlanta next week, it's only 2 hours away from Augusta. And I know for a fact that not only would the ATLians and just all of Georgia MMA, just love to see you there. We grew up, we didn't grow up, but we saw you in the NFC coming up, conflict, whatever the case may be. But I know for your friends, your family, and your fans from Augusta, it would mean the world to them to make that, that 2 hour drive to State Farm Arena, but between you and me, Phillips Arena. We call it Phillips Arena. You feel me, Malcolm? You know what it is, but how much would it mean to them to come out and see you fight? And is there should we keep the hope alive that maybe you do fight sooner than we think?
Yeah, man. Once I found out that the fight in Atlanta was happening, my heart was dead set on it. Everybody that I know personally, obviously, my whole family, all my supporters that's been there since day one, are all pretty much people in Georgia, South Carolina, this kind of area. So for me to be able to fight in Atlanta, which doesn't happen often for the UFC, especially after, the hype that I just built after, my last two performances, it would be a dream come true, man. So I cannot, stress how much and how valuable a performance in Atlanta would be for my career and my fan base and the whole organization, I believe, at this point. And as far as whether people should keep the hope alive, you definitely should. Me and my management have been in constant conversation literally every day between my last fight and the Atlanta card. And efforts have been made and efforts are still being made. And we're getting really close. And, I'm watching my weight. I'm dieting down. I'm training. I'm doing everything as if I'm going to be competing next weekend in Atlanta. And the UFC makes things happen, and sometimes they make them happen really late. So don't give up hope yet, because I'm still very hopeful. And it's a very, very big possibility that we make something happen for the June 14th card.
Yeah, and I mean, whether it's a fresh opponent or whether, there's a couple bantamweight fights on the card, you never know. Some of these guys got histories of pulling out. You never know. Hey, Malcolm, you want to fight Cody Garbrandt in a week? You feel me? Like, dude, that could happen.
It could. It literally could, bro. Trust me. We've thought about all these things, man. So I'm as ready as I can be, bro. My answer is gonna be yes.
Yes, sir.
Always.
Awesome. So now let's answer a couple fan questions, and then I'll let you go to practice. And I appreciate your time, my man. So one of the all right, let's see what we got. So Jermaine just wants to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, fellow Gemini.
Yeah. Okay. Dixon says, strictly for research purposes, Malcolm, a hypothetical full mount scenario where you have your opponent flattened out. Would you prefer to fish for a rear naked choke, ground and pound until the ref steps in? Like, what do you want to do in that situation?
I'm ground and pounding all day, bro. All day. If I fish for the choke, it's after I've ground and pounded him like ridiculously, and that seems like the only way to get him out of there.
My boy Shady, who's not a shady guy, he's a hard worker. He says, rooting for Malcolm. All the guys in the field, job site, and all the different trades are rooting for you.
That, homie. Y'all got my heart, bro. I love the trades,
man. Let's see what else we got here. Kunith wanted to thank you for the cheese on the KO against Simon.
Yeah, I saw some people cash in some crazy numbers, man. So, hey, next time you have to bet a lot more money. I hate to tell you, bro, but next time the odds ain't gonna be in my favor.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I mean, it was crazy. They had you like a pick'em with Cameron,
I know.
And we took full advantage. But yeah. All right, hold on. I'm scrolling down these questions. I know I got a few more for you. So M-Test wants to know, Malcolm, are you Filipino?
No, I am Black and Vietnamese.
And Brody says, what striker would Malcolm like to fight someday? Him and Yanez would be insane.
Yeah, Yanez would be a banger fight. I would love. You can guess, who I'm feeling. Yeah, Peyton Talbot, man. Come on, it's happening one day.
Peyton Talbot, Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, even Corey Sandhagen would be fun as hell. I think Corey would try to put me on my back though. He's too smart.
He changed his style completely recently. Respect, you got to do what you got to do.
That's
but
right.
Dude, it'd be cool, because like, again, you're only 1-0 in the UFC. I love how we're talking about you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, you almost got 100K followers. You're doing the whole bit. Right, but like, how cool would it be to see you like take out a few of these like names first before we get like you and Cody Garbrandt, like you and Charles Jourdain, like you know what I'm saying?
So many fun fights. It's so many fun fights. I just need them to make them happen. Give me a contract. That's all I need, bro. That's it.
So Marcus donated $5 to the show. Thank you so much, Marcus. He says, enjoying the show. Malcolm should be on the ATL card. And Marcus, I told you last time you did an interview with me that Marcus owns the Nubian bookstore in Morrow, Georgia. So if you ever are in that area, definitely go pay him a visit. And he's going to be at the fights next week too. So
awesome.
Fuck yeah.
Hope to meet you there, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we got a couple more. Okay, let's see. And when's the next fight? We can't talk about that yet. Okay, here we go. This is a good question. Andy said, Malcolm, in a sport built on controlled violence, how do you mentally separate the fighter in the cage from the man outside of it? That's a good question.
As far as myself or my opponent?
No, like yourself. Like, because in the cage, you
I understand.
Guys, but outside the cage, you're like the nicest guy.
Yeah, the reality is all us fighters have that dark side in us all the time. And for some of us, it's different things that fighting brings out of us to make that the place that's the right time for us to let that out. For me, to be honest, as a child, even, growing up, I struggled with my anger. I struggled with my temper. And a lot of it was me feeling like I didn't have anybody listening to me or understanding me or wanting to hear me. And when I got into the cage and I learned how to control those emotions and make it a sport to me. And then also having that relationship with my corner, somebody that's listening to me, somebody that understands me, knows me. It just checked all those boxes that, I felt like were necessary for my development as a person. So for me, fighting, training, competing is that outlet so that I don't have to carry that person that didn't have those things outside of the cage. So that's what it did for me.
That's beautiful. MMA Locker Room says, how is it being a mixed biracial fighter, Black and Asian, trying to rep both cultures? You got aura, that's fire.
Hey, shout out to MMA Locker Room, man. I love those dudes, man. They cool as could be. Being a mixed biracial fighter, man, I think it's cool. I get a lot of the Benson Henderson comparisons, even though I don't know if he's biracial either.
Dude, every comment last time you did my show was like, is that Benson Henderson? I was like,
every time, bro. Even before I was even like actually in shape, you know what I mean? I was getting those comparisons. So I love it, man. I think it brings a certain level of interest just off of the way I look. And when you combine that with my style, it blesses me, and hopefully I can tap into the fan base from both of the cultures, man.
So a few more questions before I get you out of here. So Bill's Mafia said, what's the mindset going into your next fight, knowing your last fight ended so fast and you didn't get a chance to get some rounds in?
I don't want to get no rounds in, bro. To be honest, that is true though. In best case scenario, man, I get all these guys out of here quick, fast, in a hurry, no injuries, and don't have to put a lot of wear and tear on my body, and give the next opponents less to study. So the mentality doesn't change much. I'm gonna go into the training room. I'm gonna break down my opponent. We're gonna look for the quickest way and the most efficient way and safest way for me to knock those guys out without taking damage or having to fight too hard.
And the funny thing about this is, back to he's KO or bust, right? Like when people talk like that, they don't know that, like we talked about earlier, you went 5 rounds kickboxing with Walter McCoy.
Oh yeah.
You went 5 rounds with Taylor Moore. And dude, when I watched back those fights with Moore and Zachariah Camargo, how the hell was one a split and how the hell was one a majority?
Brother.
Look, I understand that the Kamara fight with the size, you had to ease into the fight. Okay, great. Yes. But then you eased into the fight and clearly won. So how could a judge give one card to him?
Brother, I do not know. It's mind blowing. I felt When I heard split decision on that fight, bro, my heart dropped. I was confused. I went back to the locker room. I cried because I thought maybe I actually lost. Like, I thought I was delusional. And then, I go back and watch it time and time again. And I'm just like, bro, I cannot see what that one judge saw. I just can't. And with Taylor Moore, once again, I felt super confident about it. And somehow it was a majority decision, but it is what it is. Those things make me work harder. So,
but majority means that one judge had it a draw, right?
Correct. Yeah, one had it a draw.
But like, I saw you look. Okay, yeah, there was a lot of cage work, but I saw you getting closest to finishing that fight. And what?
Bro, I dropped him multiple times. Like, I don't know what else I kind of do. Like, I mean, Jesus.
I thought it was closer to a 50-45 than it was to a 48-47 or what, or 48-48, 47-40. What? Yeah, insanity.
I mean, I don't know. And you never know what's going through the judges' heads, and that's why you never leave it in their hands. But like I said, bro, when I had those experiences with those two guys, that I didn't finish, it put a fire under me because I absolutely hate leaving my fate up to somebody that probably doesn't know the sport half as well as some of my fans do. So like I said, man, I'm going there to try to knock these guys out as quick as possible, man.
Dude, let me say this. It's not even about them knowing the sport. Are they even watching the fights while they're happening? Or are they looking at their phones? Like, what I'm saying? Like, what?
Listening to crowd reaction. Yeah, goodness, bro.
Yeah, like who called them and told them to have some pre-filled scorecards on the other guy in advance? You know what I'm saying?
It had to be. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So anyways, next question. Ursel said, Malcolm, you were born June 4th, 94. I was born June 1st, 94. That makes me a supporter for the rest of my life. My fellow 94, baby.
We locked in, homie. Happy belated birthday to you.
Yeah. All right, let's see. If there's anything else, I'm going to get to it. If not, I'm going to let you go. Let me see if there's like one more good one before I get you out of here. Hold on a second. So the Parlay MMA says, Walla, my dog, bro, put him ignoring me in the Kansas City vlog. Do you know what this is about?
Bro, yes, 100%. All right. First of all, that's my guy, bro. He vouched for me the same way you vouched for me. And I talked to him right before the fight, and he told me where he was going to be at. And after I got the knockout, bro, I was going down, the walkway by the tunnel, and I was getting people on my right, getting people on my left. Getting people on my right, the last person on my right I stopped at was right before him, and I walked right by him, and I did not say nothing to him. And when I made my vlog, my Life After 50K vlog, that scene of me not showing him no love is in the opening sequence. So, brother, my bad. Everybody go follow the Parlay MMA, man. He is solid, and he knows what he's talking about, and it's nothing but love, homie.
Hey, the Parlay MMA, you just got a promo cut to you by the best unranked prospect in the bantamweight division. I would make sure you clip that and use it. Guy. Now, MMA controversy said, Malcolm, I was there in Kansas City for the KO, man. Got the night started the right way. They got to get you in the next UFC trading card set. People are going to be hunting that rookie autograph like crazy. You know anything about your card yet? You got anything?
Nah, I haven't been told anything about any cards or nothing like that, but I've been working on my autograph, so I'll be ready, homie.
Awesome. Well, Malcolm, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle. The fans can follow you at Walla the Machine on all platforms. Man, hope we get some good news soon. And any message for the fans before I get you out of here?
Keep your fingers crossed, guys. We're working on Atlanta. And obviously tap into the social media, the YouTubes, because information is going out. Merch might be going out soon. So you guys stay on standby. I appreciate all your love and support, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, sir. Malcolm, it's always a pleasure. We're rooting for you, and keep doing exactly what you're doing, man. Much love.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Take care, my friend. So for all the fans, the show is not over yet. We got to talk about the rest of the card. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. But firstly, shout out Malcolm the Machine Wellmaker. What a cool dude. Make sure y'all smash that like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, share, and let's keep talking about these fights. But before I do that, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Bet105. Which book offers -105 odds on all major sports, no KYC, and no games when it's time to get paid? That's right, Bet 105. This weekend at UFC 316, my friends at Bet 105 got a special offer for you. If you're looking to parlay the champ Merab Dvalishvili with women's challenger Kayla Harrison, currently you got to pay a little bit over minus 185 odds, but Bet 105 are going to knock 20% off of that and take you down to slightly around minus 155 odds. Now, also, we talk about it every single week, split decision insurance. Now, I personally got to give the judges a lot of credit because last week, they actually got every decision right. I mean, you don't often hear me saying that, but what that means is we're due for reversion to the mean, aka some insane decisions are headed your way. I mean, you don't know what this incompetent imbecile Chris Lee is thinking. You don't know what side of the bed Adelaide Bird woke up on. You don't know if Ron McCarthy is looking at his phone or actually watching the fight itself. So if a fight goes to split decision and you win, hey, you get your money, no big deal. But if you lose that split decision with Bet 105 split decision insurance, you're going to get 25% of your money back. Hey, that's better than nothing, especially considering the state of modern day judging in MMA. So guys, go to bet105.ag, use my promo code HalfTheBattle, deposit $100 and get a $50 free bet at bet105.ag using my promo code HalfTheBattle. Now let's get back to the show. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Azamat and Murzakanov. He's 14-0, taking on Brendson Ribeiro, who's 17-7. Currently, they got it. Azamat minus 600. The comeback on Brendson Ribeiro's plus 425. Two little things I want to point out. Oh my God, 9.5-inch reach advantage for Brendson Ribeiro, almost a 10-inch reach advantage. And he's a good bit taller and he's 8 years younger. I have to bring this stuff up because we're talking about a plus 425 underdog in this spot. Guys, listen, obviously it doesn't take a genius to pick a minus 600. And I do think that Murzakanov most likely comes out here and starches Brendson Ribeiro in the first round. But those minus 600 odds already imply that. And there's literally no value here. And that being said, it's a weird matchup because Murzakanov's earned a big step up in competition. And this is like a risky, dangerous fight against an unknown guy who's dangerous, but no one knows who he is. So it's tough. But yeah, I mean, I do think that Murzakanov probably knocks him out. Brendson kind of is a bit chinny, leaves that chin up in the air. But Brendson can crack. Brendson, like I said, has a 10-inch reach advantage. He's the bigger guy. He's 8 years younger. And at plus 425 odds, you got to take all those things into consideration. So yeah, as a pure pick, I'll take Murzakanov, but I think that at these odds, unfortunately, it's a dogger pass situation. So next up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Sergey Spivak. He's 17-5, taking on Waldo Cortes Acosta, who is 13-1. Currently, they got it. Sergey Spivak minus 135. The comeback on Waldo Cortes Acosta is plus 115. So, I mean, they're similar ages, similar heights, similar reaches, but not similar fighting styles, right? So, Sergey, a bit more of a specialist, got that Sambo background, and he likes his judo throws. He likes grinding guys out. He likes arm bars. The fact that he hit an arm bar from guard on Tybura the way he did, and that fight was a rematch. Actually, they fought once before in Tybura 30-27 Spivak, but in the rematch, Spivak finishes him in the first round, which is, you love to see that. Hey, you made a bunch of improvements many years later. Now you can beat guys that once were able to beat you. It's just my issue with Spivak is like, I feel like he wilts when things don't go his way. I feel like he wilts when people stand up to him and they don't just succumb to his grapple heavy attack. And the thing with Waldo is he came into the UFC with, so obviously he's got like a baseball background, but he's also got like a boxing background. And like, you can tell because every time he throws an overhand right, it's like he's throwing like a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. But I felt like he turned a corner in that Robelis Despain fight. And let me explain what I mean before you pile on me in the comments, because I understand that Robelis Despain has no takedown defense whatsoever. However, going into that fight, not only was Despain a big favorite, but no one expected Waldo to even have the wherewithal to come in there with that kind of a game plan. And what was most impressive to me about that was that similar things that happened to Waldo in his fight against Rogerio de Lima. So the fact that you learn from that loss, now you're coming out there and you're doing that kind of thing to guys. Hey, that's like, you can't ask for anything more. Like, that's a big step in the right direction. my thing with Spivak is I just feel like he's kind of hard to read. Like sometimes he looks like, hey man, this guy could be like a future top. I think he might already be a top 10 guy, but I'm saying like, heavyweight's so shallow, but sometimes it looks like this guy could one day be in title contention. Like his jab's getting better. He's rounding out his game, but other times like his output is so low and he breaks in fights. And I just don't like that. So I could see a situation where Spivak does get those early takedowns on Waldo. And then from there, that's where things get interesting. Is it a one takedown and the fight is over shortly after situation where you can just come out here, take him down, submit him? Is he able to get multiple takedowns throughout the fight and grind him out? Or can Sergey kind of win this first round and then Waldo takes over the second and third rounds and starts to pick him apart a bit, starts to stuff the takedowns from there? I could honestly see it going either way. So I'm actually going to lean towards the underdog Waldo to have kind of a rough first round where he gets taken down, but he survives. Then second and third round, stuffs the takedowns, picks him apart, and goes out here and wins a close decision. So I'm going to go Waldo. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Andreas Gustafsson, he's 11-2, taking on Khaos Williams, who's 15-4. Currently, they got it. Khaos Williams minus 185. The comeback on Andreas Gustafsson is plus 160. They're both 6 feet tall. Khaos has a 3-inch reach advantage at 77-74. And Andreas Gustafsson making his UFC debut at 34 years of age compared to Khaos Williams, 31. So, yeah, interesting fight. I like this Gustafsson guy. I know that his fighting style is not the prettiest to watch. I know it's very unique and unorthodox, but I respect the hell out of this guy. He knows exactly where his strengths lie. And as soon as that bell rings, there ain't going to be no feeling out process. They ain't going to faint for like 2 minutes before someone throws the first strike. These two are it's going to be a head-on collision. And with that being said, I think that Andreas Gustafsson is going to get right into that clinch. And when I say right into that clinch, I don't mean that he's going to be, sniffing crotch and making the crowd boo. I mean elbows to the face. I mean knees to the body. You look at that fight he had on Contender Series against that 9-1 opponent who had 9 finishes, and like Andreas Gustafsson literally broke the guy's face. Now, I obviously know Khaos Williams has been in the UFC a long time. He's younger. He's got ridiculous one-hitter quitter power, physicality. I'm a huge fan of Khaos Williams. I really am. Like, I can't front, man. I love Khaos Williams. And like that last fight against Bonfim, when he got tapped out with that Darce choke, look, Khaos Williams is probably one of the toughest fighters I've ever seen, because that Darce choke, like, Mr. Bonfim has insane front chokes, right? So Bonfim attacks that front choke, that Darce choke on Khaos. Like, none of us would have held it against Khaos if Khaos quick tapped, if Khaos regular tapped, whatever the case may be. Because, like I said, in those situations, guys aren't just tapping, they're quick tapping. This guy was like, fuck it, I'm going to fight till the bitter end. Let me go to sleep. Let me die. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not quitting. Respect, man. Like, respect. You are a fucking gangster. And I feel like you could put Gustafsson and Khaos Williams in the octagon, but you could also put him in a 7-Eleven parking lot. You could put him in a dark alley, no time limit, see who comes out alive. Like, these are those kind of guys. Like, I don't want to know about Andreas's street fighting reputation in Sweden. I don't want to know about what kinds of things Khaos Williams has done in Michigan. Actually, I kind of do want to know. But that being said, guys, I just see this being an all-out war, blood, guts, wobbles, knockdowns, takedowns, elbows to the face, everything, cuts. So in that instance, I'm gonna go with the dog, Gustafsson, plus 160 in a fight that I just see being a 50-50 all-out war. Yeah, obviously someone could get caught along the way. These guys are potent finishers, but they're also very durable, insanely durable. Neither guy's been knocked out. So I just see this being like a fight of the night type war. Give me the underdog Gustafsson to win his UFC debut. All respect to Khaos Williams. I'm a fan for life. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Marquel Mederos. He is 10-1, taking on Mark Choinski, who's 8-0. Currently, they got it. Marquel Mederos minus 200. The comeback on Mark Choinski is plus 170. So, guys, off the bat, y'all know that I actually kind of liked Marquel Mederos against the original opponent, Balaji Oki, last week. I thought that had the recipe to be a 50-50 fight, and Mederos was like a plus 165 underdog there. And you saw Balaji Oki's fight against the 1 week short notice replacement Michael Aswell. Yeah, I know Balaji took over in those second and third rounds, but man, the way that fight was starting out was like 50-50. So I thought that Mederos was going to have a 50-50 fight with Oki too. But here it's a little bit different because Mederos pulled out of that fight with like food poisoning, and now he's coming back a week later. And let me tell you something. I've had food poisoning before. It does not, you are not fully recovered within a week. And not to mention, if you're taking that week to just recover and get your IVs in and whatever the case may be, that means you're not training this whole time. So in addition to being sick, you've lost a bit of sharpness. I don't expect the best version of Marquel Mederos this weekend. I like Marquel Mederos. I just don't expect him to show up at his best this weekend, considering he had food poisoning last week and cut last week too. Oh, and let me say something regarding cutting, because I heard Clint's show, shout out Clint and his guest, but his guest brought up that this is Gustafsson's second time cutting in 2 weeks. That has to be a red flag. But what he did not bring up was that the fight with Giles was supposed to be in 180-pound catch weight. So he didn't actually really cut that much, right? That fight got canceled. So I assume Gustafsson didn't get below 85 or 90. So I don't really think he cut that much weight. Whereas here against Khaos, it's at 170 pounds. So he's actually cutting this time. I just wanted to bring up that clarification that I don't think Gustafsson cut major weight 2 weeks in a row. Mederos, on the other hand, not only was he cutting to 55s, but he got food poisoning. Now you got to recover from that, and now you got to fight this 3-time D3 All-American wrestler. Like, listen, I like Choinski a lot. I really do. So obviously he's got the wrestling credentials. It's not D1, it's not D2, it's D3, but it's D3 All-American, and he can wrestle. He can wrestle his ass off. Like, people downplay them because they're D3. I'm not the kind to do that. He's a real wrestler. But his striking's gotten a lot better too. Now, obviously his striking is not his strong suit, but it's not, day one striking. He trains at Rufus Sport, so obviously he helps them out with their wrestling. That's the reason that Christian Rodriguez, why his wrestling got so much better. You saw that fight with Bulgarian. Why was he able to have such success? Or that fight with Austin Bashi. Why was C-Rod able to have so much success? Because of his secret weapon, Choinski. That's his main training partner. This guy Choinski can wrestle his ass off, but he doesn't rush the wrestling, which I really like. So he gives you a false sense of security that he's going to come out here and strike with you for a bit. And you're like, oh, this guy's going to bang with me. Perfect. Then he'll level change. And on the mat, dude, he's got a disgusting arm triangle. I'm saying that arm triangle he has is stupid. The technique is on point. I believe is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu too, in addition to the D3 All-American credentials. And Marquel Mederos does have good takedown defense. Don't get me wrong. But Marquel Mederos fights at very thin margins, not thick margins like my girl Ardelian. And when guys like Harmless Hubbard are taking you down and taking your back, I mean, that gives me confidence in a plus 170 dog who's got way better wrestling credentials than both, that he can do similar things. And I don't think on the feet he's so badly outmatched that a minus 200 is warranted here on Mederos. So although I was picking Mederos as a dog last week, I'm picking against Mederos here. I'm actually go Choinski to come out here and get this upset. So yeah, give me Mark Choinski to win his UFC debut. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Cong Wang. She's 7-1, taking on Ariane Lipsky, who's 17-10. Currently, they got it Cong Wang minus 550. The comeback on Ariane Lipsky is plus 400. So, my friends, you always have to pay a premium on Cong Wang, no matter who she's fighting. You always have to do it. It is what it is. But my thing about this fight is Lipsky is like so hot and cold, so hit or miss. Like, sometimes I'm like really impressed with Lipsky. Let me pull up what Lipsky's been up to lately, because I want to point out where like I've been impressed and where I've kind of been like, what, so like, dude, the way Lipsky handled JJ Aldrich as like a plus 400 dog, lands over 100 significant strikes, The way she beat Melissa Gatto, who's a super tough out, a very underrated fighter in that division. And then she just ran through Casey O'Neill like it was nothing. So it was seeming like, hey, the queen of violence has the mental has finally caught up with the physical. Now she's going to make her run because the talent was always there. It was just kind of, she would kind of have these mental lapses in fights. But man, these last two fights were getting back to the old Lipsky. It's so disheartening that I really thought she turned a corner, and it seems like apparently she didn't, man. And with Kong Wang, if you bet on Gabriela Fernandez in that upset, you can keep betting all the underdogs against Kong Wang going forward, and you've already profited, right? Like it's going to take a lot of losses for you to not, for you to overcome the profit you made on Gabriela Fernandez initially. That's what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, it's probably a dog or pass situation from a betting perspective. It's just I don't know, did Ariane Lipsky have a fight with her boyfriend, the night before the fight? Is she getting food poisoning? She's one of those fighters where she has to wake up on the right side of the bed. She has to have the proper makeup artist on. She has to have the perfect warm up for things to go well, right? And Kong Wang, I know she's a stunt puller, but hopefully that humbled her a bit, and she can come out here and do what she's known for doing, which is, look, they're both decent strikers. I'd say more power on the Lipsky side, but more technical acumen on the Kong Wang side. Give me Kong Wang. It doesn't take a genius to pick a minus 550, but if I knew Lipsky was in her best mental state, she could be live for an upset. But yeah. Oh, did it just get announced? We were trying not to say it, but hold on. Let me just make sure this is announced before I talk about it. Yep. It is official. It is official. So yeah, guys, Malcolm Wellmaker is gonna smoke the green-haired guy next week in Atlanta. Man, it's too bad it got announced 5 minutes after he got on the show, because we talked about it before the show. We were like, hey, should we mention it or what? So we decided to just keep the hope alive and let y'all know that, hey, most likely he's going to fight an ATL, but we're not allowed to announce shit without the contracts being signed. We don't want to piss off the UFC. But hey man, shout out Chris Moutinho, bro. Shout out Chris Moutinho. He went back to the regional scene. He got some finishes under his belt, and he's earned that opportunity to come back. And not only that, let me mention this too. Do y'all know how many people turned down Malcolm Wellmaker for this card? And if I mentioned the names of the guys that turned him down, y'all would be like, no way. That guy was one of my favorite prospects. No way. I thought that guy fights anyone, anytime, any place. Y'all would be like, whoa. So shout out Chris Moutinho. You're the fucking man for taking this fight. I'm going to take Kong Wang here for the dub. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Ju Sang Yu, he's 8-0, taking on Jekka Sergey, who is 14-4. Currently, they got it. Ju Sang Yu minus 550. The comeback on Jekka Sergey is plus 400. So interesting fight. So this dude, Ju Sang Yu, making that UFC debut here. And real quick, before I continue, shout out to my dog, Kyle Marley, who I'm going to see in Atlanta next week. And Kyle, I don't know if you just saw the announcement. Malcolm Wellmaker is fighting Chris Moutinho in Atlanta. So let's fucking go, bro. But guys, here's my thing with this fight. Ju Sang Yu, so he's coming to the UFC as a, he's a debutant. This is his first UFC fight, but he's a minus 550 favorite. This guy's got a lot of swag. This guy's got a lot of confidence. This guy believes in himself a lot, and he's well-rounded, and he takes risks. And I enjoy watching him fight. Like I said, he's super confident, and he'll try some stuff out there. And like I said, that last fight, man, he starched this dude with an O'Malley-esque counter. But in other fights, I've seen him do some very unorthodox things on the mat. This is a good prospect, but you got to bring him up slowly, which is what they're doing here. And with Jekka Sergey, I don't think that the skills are necessarily quite there, but what I do think is quite there is the power. One thing you cannot deny about Jekka Sergey, again, We can criticize his takedown defense, his striking defense, his speed, whatever. But I'm not gonna criticize Jeka Sergey's one-hitter quitter. He 100% has knockout equity in any fight he's in. This guy can crack. That being said, what else can he do? Not much. I think that Su Yang Yu, what's buddy's name? Sang Yu. I think Sang Yu is way too well-rounded, way too confident. And I think he's going to come out here and school Jeka Sergey, but Sergey does have a puncher's chance. So that's something that you absolutely have to be aware of. But I just think that Jeka Sergey fights at such a slower pace, and it's reliant on the one-hitter quitter. Like someone in the comments just said, Meatball, great comment. Jeka was made for 4-ounce Muay Thai. Oh, I like that. The 4-ounce Muay Thai. Go in there at 1 and throw hammers with John Lineker. Fuck yeah. I'm all about that, dude. This guy knows ball. You weren't coming at me the other day, were you? Was that a different Mad Ball or Meatball? Hold on, let me see. Meatball. No, that was someone else. You're the fucking man. But I'm gonna go Su Yang Yu here for the dub. And last but not least, in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Quinlan Salkild. He's 8-1, taking on Yanal Ashmuz, who's also 8-1. And currently, they got a Quinlan Salkild minus 550. The comeback on Yanal Ashmuz is plus 400. So here's my thing about this fight, guys. I am not a big Yanal Ashmuz believer. I'm simply not. Why? Because I think his volume is so damn low, and you guys know how I hate low volume fighters, but I will give him credit. Yanal Ashmuz surpassed my expectations against Sam Patterson, surpassed my expectations against Trevor Peek. Now, real quick, because I know someone's going to be like, damn, your expectations must have been pretty low if he exceeded them against Trevor Peek. Yeah, but like, okay, let's say you picked him to win that fight, but did you think he was going to go out there and land 9 takedowns? Did you think it was going to be a 30-27 clinic? I didn't. I thought, hey, if Ashmuz wins, it's like, I thought it was going to be a Trevor Peek fight, a brawl, could go either way, whatever. But to school him like that, respect. And then to knock out Patterson, I know Patterson was in the wrong weight class, but Patterson's a hell of a fighter. And I completely counted out Ashmuz in that fight. So, respect. 2 times I've counted you out as a dog, and you've done your thing. And I'm counting you out again here. So will you do your thing? That remains to be seen. But his output is just so low. And this kid, Salkild, long, wiry, and he's got volume. He's got pace, and he can mix it up everywhere, whether it's on the feet, whether it's on the mat. And just that body type is so hard to deal with. Here's the thing. What's the trade-off? These kind of tall, tall man's defense type guys, in the early going, he's going to be susceptible to getting cracked hard. But besides that, once Quinlan Salkild eases into this fight, once he finds his range and his timing, Ashmuz might be absolutely, fucked. You know what I'm saying, man? So, yeah, give me Salkild probably by 30-27, 30-26 decision. Maybe 29-27, where like Ashmuz has a big moment in round 1, gets round 1, but then it becomes an ass whooping the next 2 rounds. Salkild puts it on him. Maybe gets a 10-8 along the way. I don't know. But bottom line, I'm going Salkild here for the dub. Well, my friends, we did it. Before I get out of here, I'm going to read a couple fan comments because we got some fight announcements here. We got, Fresh Gamble said, I see the fight announcement. I mean, I've known about the fight since yesterday, and Malcolm and I talked about it before he came on the show. It's just that, we respect the UFC and we're not going to get him in trouble when it hasn't officially been announced. But yeah, we already knew about that. And we're very, very excited about that. I mean, aren't you excited about that? I can't wait to see Malcolm Wellmaker treat this guy like a human piñata. You know what I'm saying? Go out there and treat him like the walking punching bag he is. But all respect to Moutinho for stepping up when way bigger names and way better fighters turn this fight down. You know what I'm saying? So big shout out to him. Shout out Meatball, shout out Kyle Marley, Dixon, all the guys in the chat. You guys are fucking amazing. Marcus with the donation, really appreciate that. So guys, I'm going to be at UFC Atlanta next week, as y'all know. So if you're going to be there, Make sure you hit me up. Come say hi. I'm always down to interact with anyone that has my back. Maybe even y'all that talk shit want to come say hi. I'm down to say hi to you too. Also, next week is episode 600 of Half the Battle. Episode 600. Man. I mean, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Like, that means a lot to me. Tell me who you guys want to see as my guest for episode 600. Not only episode 600, but episode 600 in Atlanta. Don't mention any old co-hosts, because I can promise you that's not going to happen. That ship sailed a long time ago. So give me some better options. No old co-hosts will be my guest for episode 600. Those ships have sailed, but new co-hosts, new personalities, old friends of the show, fighters, anyone, y'all let me know who you want to see as my guest for UFC Atlanta and episode 600 of Half the Battle. So I'm truly grateful for all your support. Smash the like, hit the subscribe. Like I said, I'm going to be back next week twice, on Monday and then on Wednesday for episode 600. So let me know who y'all want to see as my guest, and share, comment, like, all that stuff, and subscribe. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.